Okay, let's dive right in. We're tackling a question that, well, it's probably crossed everyone's mind at some point.
Yeah.
Is there something more? Something beyond just what we see and touch every day?
That fundamental question, yeah. The idea of a higher power, God.
Yeah.
It's universal, isn't it? And people have tried to answer it for millennia.
Exactly. And for this deep dive, we're looking at some really interesting Farsi sources. Our goal isn't, to find the answer, but to explore the arguments they present for God's existence.
Right. And what's compelling is how they approach it. It's not just about faith alone. They use logic, reason, and also observations, looking closely at the world around us.
So a mix of thinking and seeing, basically. We're going to unpack a couple of their main lines of argument today. These are debates that are ancient but still feel really relevant.
They absolutely do.
Yeah.
So where should we start?
Let's start with the first one. It gets a bit philosophical, dealing with ideas of possibility and necessity regarding existence. Sounds heavy, maybe?
Well, it touches on something fundamental. The core idea is, look around you. People, trees, mountains, this microphone.
Right.
Do they have to exist? It feels like
They could have not existed.
Right.
Yeah.
Their existence seems possible, but not, essential.
Okay, I think I follow. They exist, but it's not like the universe couldn't function without this specific true.
Precisely. The texts call these mumkin nawujud, possible beings. Things whose existence isn't guaranteed or self-explanatory. Think of, well, a chair.
Okay.
It exists now. But it needed wood, a carpenter, a design. It didn't have to come into being. Its existence depends on other things.
It's contingent. That makes sense. Like one domino falling because the one before it fell.
Exactly. And the argument builds on that. It says anything that is merely possible, anything contingent, needs a cause. Something had to bring it into existence.
You can't just pop out of nowhere.
Right. Nothing just spontaneously appears without a reason or a cause, just like that domino doesn't fall on its own.
Okay, that feels intuitive. Everything we see seems to have a cause. But then the obvious question is, what caused the cause? And the cause before that, does it just go back forever?
You've hit the core issue they address. This idea of an infinite chain of causes going backwards, they call it tasalsul, is something the texts argue against.
Yeah, why? What's wrong with it going back infinitely?
Well, think about it like this. Imagine you need permission from an infinite line of people before you can do something. If there's no first person to grant permission,
you never get
started. The argument is similar for existence. If every cause depends on a prior cause, infinitely, without any initial starting point, how does anything ever actually come into existence right now?
It feels like it would always be stuck waiting for the cause before it, which is waiting for the one before that forever, like an endless pending status.
Exactly. It seems logically problematic. And they also dismiss something called dar batil, circular causality.
Circular. Like A causes B and B causes A.
Precisely. It's seen as illogical because nothing actually gets explained. If the chicken needs the egg to exist, and the egg needs the chicken, where did either start? It doesn't provide an ultimate origin.
Okay, so no infinite regress, no causal loops. What's the alternative then? According to these texts, where does this chain of causes have to end?
The conclusion they draw is that the chain must end. It has to lead back to something that isn't itself caused. A primary cause.
An uncaused cause.
Yes, something whose existence isn't contingent or possible, but necessary. It doesn't depend on anything else to exist. It just is. Think of it as the first domino that doesn't need pushing. Its existence is inherent.
So its nature is to exist?
That's the idea. This is where they introduce the term wajibul wujud, the necessary being. Its existence isn't just possible, it's essential. Non-existence isn't an option for it, according to this argument.
So the argument isn't just who made everything. It's more like what must exist fundamentally for anything else to even be possible.
You've got it. It's looking for the ultimate foundation, the bedrock of reality.
And this necessary being, this wajibul wujud, the texts conclude that this is what we mean by God.
That is the claim, yes. This self-existent, uncaused, necessary foundation of all reality is identified as God.
Which kind of sidesteps that classic question, well, who created God, doesn't it?
It does, according to this framework, because the question, who created X, only applies to possible beings, things that could have not existed.
Things that need a cause.
Right. If God, by definition in this argument, is the necessary being, the uncaused cause, then asking what caused the uncaused cause becomes, well, meaningless, a contradiction in terms.
Okay, wow. That's definitely a lot to chew on, philosophically. Very logical, very abstract in a way.
It is. It's a deductive approach.
Let's shift gears a bit then. You mentioned they also use observations of the world. Tell me about the second argument, the Burhan-Nazm argument from design or order.
Exactly. This one is much more empirical. It says, look around you, look at the details. The texts specifically use examples like a duck and a camel.
A duck and a camel. Okay, I'm intrigued. What's the argument there? It's not just that they look nice, is it?
No. Order or design here means something deeper. It's about the incredible suitability, the precise harmony between an organism's parts and its environment, suggesting purpose.
Functionality.
Functionality, coordination, fitness for purpose. It looks less like random chance and more like, well, intelligent arrangement.
Okay, so the duck. Walk me through that example.
Think about a duck's features. Its body shape, streamlined, almost boat-like for water. Its feathers, oily, providing waterproofing and buoyancy. Its beak, shaped perfectly for dabbling, finding food in mud and water. Web feet for paddling.
It all works together for living in water.
Perfectly. It's not just one adaptation. It's a whole suite of interconnected features precisely suited for an aquatic life, it seems. Designed for it.
I see the point. And the camel, I assume it's about desert adaptation.
Exactly. Another classic example. Wide, padded feet.
Yeah.
To walk on sand without sinking. Long eyelashes, nostrils that can close. Protection from sandstorms. And the famous hump. Not primarily water storage, actually, but fat storage for energy, which, when metabolized, does produce water, allowing it to go long periods without drinking.
Wow. Okay. Again, multiple features working together seamlessly for a very specific, harsh environment.
It's presented as compelling evidence of purpose and design, perfectly matched to its needs.
Now, the immediate thought for many people hearing this, myself included, is evolution. Random mutation, natural selection over vast stretches of time. Couldn't that explain this adaptation without needing a designer?
That's the major counterargument today, absolutely. The texts, while perhaps not engaging with Darwinian evolution directly in our modern terms, certainly address the idea of chance producing such complexity.
And how do they respond?
They argue that the sheer improbability is overwhelming. The odds of all these intricate, coordinated features arising and working together perfectly through purely random, undirected processes are seen as astronomically low. Almost zero, as some put it.
It's not just one lucky mutation, but complex systems.
Yes. It's the integrated complexity. They use a powerful analogy. Imagine an explosion happening in an old-fashioned printing press, scattering all the individual letter blocks everywhere.
Okay, chaos.
What are the chances that those letters would randomly fall back into place, perfectly forming, say, a complex and beautiful poem, like a ghazal by Hafez?
Vanishingly small. Infinitesimal. You'd never expect that.
Precisely. The argument is that observing the functional integrated complexity in a duck or a camel is like observing that perfectly formed poem. Attributing it purely to random chance seems, well, less rational than inferring an intelligence, a composer, a designer.
So the conclusion here is that observing this level of purposeful order strongly suggests an intelligent, capable mind behind it.
That's the core of the Burhan-Nazm. It posits that belief in a conscious will, an intellect directing this process, is a more reasonable explanation for what we observe than appealing solely to blind, random chance.
It kind of flips the script, doesn't it? It puts the burden of proof on those who claim it's all chance to explain how such incredible functional complexity is statistically plausible without guidance.
That's a fair way to see its thrust. And the texts extend this beyond just living beings. They suggest we see analogous order and predictable laws throughout the cosmos, planets orbiting, galaxies structured. It's a pervasive pattern.
Which leads to a really interesting point. How are we even able to perceive this order or follow that logical argument we discussed earlier? How do we know things? Do the texts talk about our own tools for understanding?
You do, actually. It's quite fascinating. They discuss our own cognitive faculties, the means by which we acquire knowledge. They mention three key ones: basar, qalab, and sam.
Okay, basar, qalab, sam. Let's break those down. What's basar? Sight.
It includes physical sight, but it means more like insight, perception, discernment. The ability to see patterns, grasp general principles and phenomena, understand the significance of what you observe.
Ah, so it connects to the design argument, seeing the order and purpose in the duck, not just seeing the duck itself.
Exactly. It's that deeper seeing, recognizing the relationships, the underlying structure.
Got it. And qalb, often translated as heart, right?
Yes, but here it signifies the intellect, the faculty of reason, abstract thought, logical deduction, the power to understand concepts like possibility, necessity, cause, and effect.
So that's the tool we'd primarily use for that first argument about the necessary being.
Precisely. It's our capacity for rational analysis and understanding abstract truths.
Makes sense. And the last one, Sam, hearing.
Literally hearing, yes, but it extends to the capacity to receive knowledge from an external source. This could be through revelation, what the texts call way,
Okay.
but it could also mean learning from science, from experts, from transmitted knowledge. It's our ability to gain understanding not just through our own observation or reasoning, but by receiving information.
That's really interesting. So the texts are even reflecting on the tools we use to engage with these very questions about existence and God. Our perception, our reason, our ability to learn from others.
Exactly. It's quite meta in a way, recognizing that our exploration is dependent on these cognitive capacities we possess.
So let's try to pull these threads together. We've looked at two major arguments from these sources.
Yes. First, the logical philosophical argument starting from the nature of existence itself possible versus necessary, leading to the conclusion of a necessary being, or wajibul wujud.
Very much based on reason, on qalb.
Right. And second, the argument from design, or burhanism, looking at the intricate order and purposefulness in the natural world, from ducks to camels to the cosmos.
Using our perception, our basar.
Exactly. Observing the world and inferring an intelligent designer from that perceived order.
And it's striking how they're quite different approaches, aren't they? One is top-down, logical deduction. The other is bottom-up, based on observation.
Very different methods. Yet the texts present them as converging on the same conclusion: the existence of a creator who is both necessary and intelligent.
They seem complementary, appealing to different aspects of how we understand the world, our reason, and our senses.
That seems to be the implication. Two paths leading towards a similar understanding.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, here's something maybe for you, our listener, to think about. You've heard these arguments, one based on logical necessity, the other on observed design. How do they sit with you?
How do these lines of reasoning connect or perhaps conflict with your own beliefs, your own experiences, or maybe knowledge you've received through other means, like faith or tradition?
Yeah, it raises that question, can these different ways of knowing, through logic, through observing the world, maybe through revelation or intuition, can they all work together harmoniously?
Or do they sometimes create tensions? Do you find one more compelling than the other? It's about how these different avenues, reason, observation, perhaps faith, interact in your own understanding.
Definitely something profound to mull over. A point for further thought, perhaps.
Indeed. A personal exploration that continues long after our discussion ends.